Good evening. This is the meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. Time is 7:03 p.m. and the date is January 10th, 2012. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking first full part in the discussion and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflicts of interest. Present tonight are Betty Holler, John Golsey, myself, Joan Kornansky, Chair. Michelle Drabel will not be with us. She has vacated her seat and will be sitting on City Council. And this evening, Lisa Carson will be joining us as a full member, and alternate Kay Towsley. Also present are Zoning Administrator John Paskey and Secretary Paul Eschenbacher. The board operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The applicant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding summary or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will then deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code 230703B, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code 230710C, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board finds, based on direct specific findings of fact, that each of the following conditions have been supported. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of the public purpose. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Preservation of equal property rights. The literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone in the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone in the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation on the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent in nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens aggrieved by the decision of the board may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the board to the appellant. There is one case tonight, one case on tonight's agenda, and that would be case number 1126V, 27 Meadow Lane, and the appellant is Hamad Faik. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda, please stand. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You can be seated. Okay. I'd like to call on Secretary Paul Eschenbacher to give us any background on this case.
I'll go ahead and defer to the zoning administrator.
Okay.
This is a unique case. I actually struggled with this for quite some time as to what to do with this. This is a fee simple townhouse condo situation, basically, where it was a PUD back in 1981. Typically, any type of a PUD request, if you want to change the application as submitted, it takes planning commission and then city council action. And that may be the way this goes yet. But since it's 30 years ago, thought, well, let's try to run it through this, because usually PUDs have to be completed within a 10-year period, and this is kind of past that time frame. So we're kind of going to establish maybe a little bit of a ground rule, maybe not necessarily a ground rule, but a precedent of how we handle when someone wants to put an addition onto a fee simple townhouse building that has basically zero lot lines and exceeds coverage and exceeds some of the rear yard setback, which is what the application is for this. The existing structure does not have, obviously, since it's an interior structure, needs a variance for side yard setbacks on both sides, rear yard setback, and lot coverage. So it's kind of a unique situation as to see how we proceed in the future on this, if it's going to be the type of projects that we bring through here. I believe the appellant does have the right to request a variance to see if they can meet the guidelines and standards that have already been set, because obviously the existing structure does not meet the guidelines of bulk controls as well. So basically what they're asking is to not exceed the standards that the PUD already established. So, and then if it's denied, they still have the option, and I talked about it yesterday or last week at the Planning Commission, of possibly going through that route as well. So with that said, I guess I'll let everyone present the case, but what they are looking for, obviously, is to build an addition on the second floor for a restroom or a bathroom that will be protruding out past the rear setback and the rear established line of the apartment complex, and then screening in underneath of it. We have allowed, and over at that facility, the screening in of some patios that were inset, because they did not come out any further than the existing rear of the structure itself. So those we have done. I think there may have been some others that were going to add it on and build over there, some decks that probably are not in, don't meet code. Then permits were not pulled on them. And we're here to try to establish what we're going to do about that in the future, and so on and so forth. So, interesting.
So I have a question, John. You said something about a PUD in a 10-year period. Could you go back to that?
I wish I would have looked into that a little bit more. I don't want to say anything wrong here, but when someone submits for a PUD, a subdivision, a PUD, and typically they have a time frame that has to be completed in, and usually it's a 10-year period. I don't know if after that 10-year period, those regulations expire. What happened, this is the first time this has happened where someone's actually submitted to put an addition on top of, to a PUD condo, townhouse type situation. So
the setbacks that they established when they built these condos, that shouldn't expire, and they never met the things for a single-family detached house.
exactly, a PUD is allowed to give you a variance of, not having the setback regulations.
Well, exactly. So it seems odd that we would grant a variance to somebody for things that were never intended to have those dimensions for the lot.
That's what we're here to see.
Okay, I vote we don't consider that, because it seems to me foolish, ridiculous. I mean, they established these lots as very small for a PUD, and now to insist somehow that they be other than that seems bizarre, and it can't be done.
Well,
Except by extremely generous and absolutely, in my mind, unnecessary variances, because they weren't built for the purpose of having big yards.
that's your interpretation, I
Right,
understand.
exactly.
That's, you know,
My
but I think they
interpretation.
have the right to ask that of you. And we may find that it's not the process to go through here, that.
I don't think so. Well, I
But
mean-
it's so old, there's really no, I don't know how long the
So something is there for 40 years, and then suddenly you say it has to meet the standards of single-family detached houses that were never PUDs?
Ma'am?
No, not now,
Yes,
not now,
not yet,
not now.
not
We'll
yet.
let you go, Tim.
You have to wait.
We'll give you a chance.
They can't hear you. There you go.
Sorry.
Too echoey, sorry. The other thing that's not clear from this application is, at least I did not determine this from the drawings, that the bathroom would extend over the porch. I don't see any indication of that, so it's good that you told us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the full deck that's there. There's a deck on there that
Right.
obviously is
So it's going to extend over beyond?
beyond the rear line of the home itself. It'll extend out past that. So they're actually going to be encroaching into the rear setback farther than it did before. Than the entire building does before.
Okay, so you're saying that the bathroom above will extend out beyond the deck?
No, beyond the rear wall of the existing complex, so to speak.
You mean the main wall?
The main wall, yes.
Okay, well, yeah, sure, it would have to, wouldn't it?
Right.
Okay, all right.
So if you're looking at the diagram that we have, and I went over and looked at it, there's something protruding out beyond that sliding door to the left of that. Is that not part of their apartment or their condominium?
Right. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, that is, and they're going past that?
No, they're not going past that. That's why I'm thinking this rear setback, they're not going beyond what is the maximum of the rear setback. They're only going to that point.
Of the rear.
They're just
Well,
going
then-
up.
Then it's the coverage in the side yards, so,
Well,
because the coverage is going back, the lot coverage, and definitely the side yard.
well, and the other thing is that various other people have already done this.
But they have,
Yeah.
not through us.
But there they are.
And some of them, I don't, whether they were on there or not before, when the structure was built.
Probably not.
I know that down on the one end, I believe it was, but I can't speak to that entirely. So
Well,
it's-
so unless we're prepared to ask them to take theirs down, then
Well, I doubt that happens, but,
I doubt that too.
I mean, what I'm trying to do basically is, and I've talked about this planning commission, is establish a path that we take from here on forward on townhouse and fee simple type condos when somebody comes in and wants to put an addition onto them.
Right.
Does it have to go back through the planning commission and city council because it's a change of the footprint on the PUD? Or is the PUD term expired long enough that the people then have to get a variance to meet today's bulk controls? Or is the existing conditions that already been set, which obviously are not in compliance with bulk controls, acceptable to the point where a person now can build 0 lot lines on the side all the way to the rear yard, to the rear property line? So that's where this gets a little, how far are we going to let it go if we say they're not doing anything worse than the existing structure?
Well, when you brought it up at the planning commission, what did they suggest? That you bring it to us?
No, I told them it was my idea to bring it through here first to kind of just, I kind of want to see what happened. And, because I honestly, if it's denied, I think the appellant has the right to request to go to the planning commission, and the planning commission agreed.
Suppose we just made a
So-
motion right now and took a vote about whether we think it should go to the planning commission.
I think that would be very advisable, because this seems like this is an issue that needs to be discussed beyond.
I don't see any point in giving
No.
variances for front, side, back, for
Well,
something
they're
that was never
redundant.
wasn't
I mean,
built that way.
yes.
And I think your concern is, I understand your concerns, but I don't see that it's our place to give variances, and then having given a variance to this, then you're in a position to need to give variances to everybody else in this situation. So that doesn't seem to me to make sense. To me. Okay.
Particularly since it's in a PUD, and there's PUD regulations that
Right.
we don't, I think that that's just graying the waters here, that, you want to make a motion?
I do, and then we can see how people feel about it by their votes.
Okay.
So I move that we not hear this case because it does not seem to me a feasible thing for us to set a precedent in giving or not giving variances for, because it is a PUD, rather than something that would more appropriately demand variances, and that we ask the Planning Commission, who initially would have approved this PUD, to consider what should be done with it now. And if they then decide to send it back to us, fine, but I think we should send it and let them discuss it first, and then Mr. Paskey will know what direction to go in. So that's my motion.
I second it.
You can't second it.
Oh,
I second it.
okay, well, we'll call for a vote.
I vote to do that, yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Policy?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And I vote yes.
Did you all come out?
I'll run it by the planning commission.
Yes.
You still want to vote on the minutes from December?
Yes,
Yes.
we do. Someone want to bring up a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we vote to approve the minutes as written.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Jen?
Passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.